Welcome to the Freedom Founder Podcast. I'm your host, Zach Duggar. Now, for those of you who don't know, I'm a big superhero fan. I've always enjoyed watching superhero movies, TV shows, and I can picture someone standing on top of a building, jumping and shooting their grappling hook, catching onto a shelf or a ledge, and swinging away to safety. And someone standing on the ground saying, "Wow, that guy has chutzpah." My guest today, Nathan Harris, affectionately known as the Chutzpah Guy, talks a lot about this topic. Now, he comes from background in entrepreneurship. He's a podcast guest, author, speaker, storyteller, award-winning entrepreneur. In fact, he's also an entertainer. He's going to bring a smile to your face and light up the conversation. And if you want to really know a little bit about him, he enjoys long walks on the beach as well. So today, Mason, thank you for joining us on the show.
Zach, I appreciate it. With that introduction, it's like, ooh, the pressure. How am I going to fulfill all that for our audience today? But I have faith in you directing this conversation in a great way.
Well, I appreciate that. Well, Mason, and one of the things that I love to start the conversation with is just to find out, when it comes to entrepreneurship, where did you get your start in this world?
Well, I guess I started working, I think I was about 7. And I responded to one of those, it must have been an ad in a comic book talking about superheroes, by the way.
There it is. Right.
And what I did was I was selling greeting cards door to door. I mean, it was Girl Scout cookies. They were my competition. I'd look at those Girl Scouts and those brownies going, they're going after my customers.
Yeah.
But I better be careful. She looks like she's in the 4th grade. She's much tougher than I am.
Right.
But I learned to go door to door. And now obviously it was in a neighborhood. It was in a day when we would allow kids to walk around and do that among the neighbors. So that was my first experience, I guess, quite honestly. And I hadn't thought of it. I've never been asked this question, actually.
Wow.
To go out, speak to people, explain what I'm doing, and hopefully not be too nervous in the entire presentation. So they say, calm down, tell me what it is you have. Sure, some greeting cards. How much is that? Yeah, let's do some business.
Yeah.
So that would be the earlier days.
I love that. I really do like that, because there are some skills learned and some opportunities gained from a young child going out and actually having to engage with people that they normally wouldn't, in a context they normally wouldn't. And I think that more people should encourage their kids to do that. So I really appreciate that. So the early days, starting at age 7, now moving into beyond the early days, where were the next steps in the world of entrepreneurship for you?
A number of jobs throughout college. I found opportunities to work and try different things. Somebody just mentioned, God, this is going to take our audience back a while, but remember John Belushi of Saturday Night Live fame and the movies afterwards?
Absolutely.
When I was in college, I worked at NBC, and I was polling on a team that was polling attitudes about the upcoming 76 presidential election and basically the Democrat primaries. And I was in the NBC building, and Saturday Night Live was just starting.
Yeah.
And it brings me back there because the show was new. They had a live audience in advance. And where they got people to come and sit was they'd give tickets away. My being in the audience, my being in the building, I managed to get tickets to a lot of the early shows. And I would run across some of these actors who were completely unknown at the time.
Right.
And befriended some of them. And where Belushi came up was, I saw him at an elevator one day. We were all on the commissary floor. He was holding on to a tray of food, probably going upstairs to work on his skits. And I said, John, can you sing that Joe Cocker song for me? The You Are So Beautiful to Me, because he'd been doing it on the show.
Yep.
And he laughed. He said, I've got this tray here. I can't do this. I said, come on, how many times you get asked that question? She said, you're right. He gave me the tray. he started rolling around the floor as people were standing around waiting for the elevators, singing to me. It was a memorable moment in chutzpah,
Yeah.
in
Right.
asking and then finding somebody responsive to it.
Yes. I like that. And I don't think many people had that experience to have had to had the opportunity even to ask somebody who has went on to quite a great level of fame and industry that they worked in. So,
But it is interesting. You and I bet all of our listeners have
mhm,
stretched boundaries. They've done things that might have seemed uncomfortable at some level,
sure.
uh, but for whatever reason, something motivated him to move on.
Yeah.
I said that when speaking to a group that you probably
Uh-huh.
had. For those of you who think you have no chutzpah, you probably had chutzpah as a kid. And they go, no, what are you talking about? I was always an introvert. And by the way, introversion has nothing to do with whether or not you have chutzpah. A lot of introverts have a lot of chutzpah, which
Okay.
surprises people that think you have to be
Yeah.
an extrovert.
Right.
But I said, do you ride a bicycle? And they said, well, yeah. How old were you when you learned? I don't know. I was probably kindergarten or
Hmm.
first grade, something like that. Okay. So prior to that, you had training wheels. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they kept you stable and comfortable. And you knew you weren't going to fall. And that at some point you decided, or somebody, an adult, decided it's time for you to learn to ride without the training wheels. Were
Yep.
you worried? Were you scared you were going to fall and hurt yourself? Most likely, yes. And that was
Hmm.
always the answer. Yeah, of course I was scared. And did you fall? And most likely the answer is yes. I
Right.
fell, I hurt myself, but I got back on that bike
Yeah.
and I learned how to ride. And that's what chutzpah is about. And that's what being an entrepreneur is about. We sometimes go into these ventures,
Yep.
and I can talk about my first venture too. Uh,
Yes.
but we
Please do.
go into these ventures and we're worried, I'm more of a thinking person. I'm more creative. I'm idea and I can handle operations. Who's going to do the sales? Because I don't feel I'm a good salesperson. Or you might feel I'm great at sales, but what about the accounting, the finance,
Right.
procurement, online marketing, use of social media? We don't have every single skill that's out there.
Yep.
So stretching boundaries means trying, failing, accepting we're going to fail in a lot of things, but learning from it and then moving forward. And that
Yeah.
was the example of chutzpah as a kid. So we all have it, by the way. The question is it dormant or do we use it regularly? Because if we use it regularly, it's like getting on a bike now without thinking and pedaling away. You don't
Yeah.
worry, okay, am I
Right.
doing this right? Am I balanced? You just start moving. That's what
Yep.
chutzpah is as well.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate those examples. I'd used the term recently with my daughter, chutzpah. She had no idea what I was talking about. So I think that is a great way to just give a definition is by using an example and clarifying what that terminology is and what it means. But talk about, so you mentioned your first journey as an entrepreneur, aside from when you were 7 years old, but starting a business as an adult. What was that? And talk a little bit about, tell us how that went for you and what you were doing. And in the intro, I said award-winning entrepreneur. I want to hear about that.
Sure. Out of one of my first jobs with a large corporation
Yep.
uh, was with a GTE Corporation. It was a
Okay.
communications company that was at some point acquired by what is today known as Verizon.
Okay.
After leaving there, I joined up with two other colleagues from GTE, and we
Yep.
worked together. First exposure to an entrepreneurial corporation. I had a small investment and share
Sure.
equity in it, and the others had the bigger investment. For a variety of reasons, it fell apart, which
Okay.
for some of us means that's it. I'm never
Yep.
going through this stress
Mhm.
again. For others, it's like, okay, what went wrong here? How can we do it better? I
Yeah.
took that approach, started another company, and over time, trying different products and services, I ended up going into what today is affectionately known as the public payphone business. You mean
Okay.
those payphones that used to be out there? I ended up in that, put out my first four phones,
Yep.
and within a couple of years, we were the largest locally based non-private payphone company.
Okay.
We kept growing. It was a complex business
Uh-huh.
because we were dealing with regulatory authorities, which is a very tough thing.
Yep.
If you are in a heavily regulated business, you have to cross those T's, dot all those I's as you do business. Otherwise, some bureaucrat somewhere, some anti-entrepreneurial type will say, "I'm sorry, I can't let you do it
Hmm.
this way." But this way
Right.
is smarter. It's better for you and for me. Sorry, I can't let you do it.
Yep.
So we were in a heavily regulated business. We had to deal not directly with the customers. The customers obviously were using our service, which was in essence
Yeah.
airtime with a quality handset and the ability to put a quarter in a machine and reach somebody. This is in the days before cell phones primarily,
Yep.
when they were responding to their not text, but to their pagers.
Yes.
Um, so our customers were the location owners or
Okay.
lessees. So a restaurant owner or a shopping center owner or an arena where you'd have
Yep.
professional sports played. So those were my clients to get started. But
Yeah.
then obviously I had to service both them and those that were paying customers.
Yep.
So we did well there. Obviously, technology overtook the need for payphones on every street corner.
Right.
And while that was changing, I said, okay, I have an investment here. And I keep confusing myself. I keep saying I'm in the payphone industry. What am I really in? Or how can I leverage what I have here so that as the payphone revenue diminishes, I have something else?
Yep.
And I realized not a what I'd say, boy, a stroke of genius. But obviously, the phones that did the best were the phones that were in the high traffic areas. So I said,
Right.
high traffic areas, who else does that benefit? And I came up with the realization it benefits advertisers.
Hmm.
So I created another company called Ads on Phones, which became
Okay.
Ads on Targets. So I could use the space as mini billboards that were on the sides of my phones.
Yeah.
But that was only the starting point. Since I was active in the National Payphone Association, I, in essence, had access to a network of payphones around the country.
Yeah.
So I quickly pivoted to that while the revenue on the coin revenue was dropping. And we
Right.
started selling advertising in markets all across the country.
Oh, wow. Okay. So you with two others had a business that did not go as successfully as would have been desired, but it's akin to the riding a bike story where you fell down and unlike some people who may choose not to get back on that horse again or get back on that bike again, you chose to learn from that and to get back on that bike again and essentially move forward and successfully started a business in communications with the payphone, which I'm
Right.
going to say you're right. Some of our listeners have probably never seen a payphone in their lives. However, they do still exist some places. I've
They
seen
do.
them now
And
and
your
then.
payphone and your listeners are probably thinking to themselves, hey, I wonder if this chutzpah guy still has a horse and buggy. No, it's all gone. We adapt, which is one of the key
Exactly.
criteria for being a successful entrepreneur. You better
Yes.
learn to adapt because change is happening whether or not you decide to go along with it.
Yes, yes, and that's exactly what you did is you adapted from that strategy of just earning from the coins and the phones to how can we also utilize this space in this high traffic area and provide a supportive service for others. So advertising in those spaces. So it just kind of reminds me of the internet and how advertisers are very much involved with all of those places that we frequent, such as social media or other search engines, but
Mhm.
very kind of related to it.
Oh, absolutely. And having knowledge of the advertising business, being active with the DC Advertising Council, yes, the ability to better target customers, when, especially when they're in the process of buying,
Yep.
is what feeds all of the digital advertising we get.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. So, as you have identified, chutzpah is a characteristic of a successful entrepreneur. Why is it important, or even to extend beyond that? what would you say are some of the key behaviors and characteristics? We've alluded to some of those, but some of the key behaviors and characteristics of an entrepreneur with chutzpah.
It's a great question. And for our audience as well, like you to think now of some of the synonyms or definition of chutzpah. But Zach, let me ask you, how would you
Yeah.
define chutzpah or chutzpah? It's pronounced multiple ways. So
Yeah, so I would define it or describe it as someone who has an ability to endure, someone who has that not necessarily fearlessness, but that ability to move forward in spite of the fear and to take that initiative to walk forward in those next steps, to get back up again, as we talked about earlier, when there are situations that result in then for on the outside looking as if there was a failure that had occurred, but learning from that and getting back up again. So there's, I think, are three of the things that I would say in description of someone with chutzpah.
and those are actually, you fit right away. The three you mentioned fit into the 8 key behaviors and characteristics that are my chutzpah model.
Okay.
So I use an acronym. I use chutzpah as an acronym, and each of
Yeah.
the letters stands for one of the behaviors or characteristics. You started with the ability to endure, endurance, persistence.
Yes.
Persistence basically is a requirement for success in all walks of life. Doesn't have to be in business. It could be, I like that person over there, but that
Yep.
person isn't interested in me. What can I do to get that coffee or that drink or that date? How can I be persistent without getting myself arrested? Okay.
Yep.
How can I do it within guidelines that are socially acceptable?
Right.
Persistence is critical in business. If we think of people we know who are successful, and it's easy to look and say, wow, that's pretty impressive what they accomplished. What's more impressive is what they had to get through to get there.
Yeah.
So persistence ties to certainly what I would call the Z in chutzpah
Uh-huh.
stands for zigzag. And that's the
Okay.
ability to get around obstacles.
Yeah.
So if one thing I encountered with my first company on my own was
Hmm.
buying payphones was capital intensive.
Sure.
Getting
Imagine.
the capital to put those out, which we needed to generate the revenue,
Yep.
was critical. Well, banks weren't interested in me because until you have more than enough money you need, banks will lend to you. It's like, I think it's an old quote. A banker is somebody who will lend you an umbrella and then ask for it back when it's raining.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and
Right.
I'm not knocking bankers here. They're great clients of mine.
Yep.
And I'd love a call from them. But the key is that unless if they really feel very secure, bankers are not risk takers. You
Right.
want risk takers, you're going to be giving up a bigger piece of your company. You're going to be
Yep.
finding venture capital or private equity.
Yep.
Bankers want to know that this loan is about as secure as it can possibly be.
Yes.
So where was I going to get the money? What I ended up doing was finding a vendor for one of the services I needed and borrowing the money from him and letting him take it back out of the fees that I was earning by reselling his service.
Yeah.
It enabled me to grow way more quickly than my competition.
Yeah.
And we both benefited.
Okay.
Let's see some of the other areas. In the three you mentioned the endurance, the persistence.
Yeah.
You also spoke about, there are 2 others, and I'm trying to
One being
think.
getting back up again. And
Getting back up again. Okay, so there
that,
is the P in chutzpah stands for purpose. And I'm not talking about mission statements. I'm not talking about a corporation that has a beautiful mission statement when you walk into the lobby,
yep.
and then you happen to go down the street and somebody has a mission statement and you're going, God, they look so similar. Everybody, they're into service and ethical treatment of their stakeholders. It feels like there's a single template out there. Okay, maybe 2 or 3 templates and everybody has it.
Right.
How many people actually have a mission statement that really is a purpose that takes it further?
Sure.
So if we think about customer service, I've asked
Yep.
this question before. Are there companies that come to mind at truly excelling in customer service? Because everybody claims, oh, we go above and beyond. We have a 24-hour hotline. You can call and reach out and get answers to your questions. Of
Yep.
course, you're calling a bot and it's
Right.
artificial intelligence, and you're not going to get your answer then anyway. But to them, that's sufficient enough. Is there a company that comes to people's minds when thinking of customer service? I don't know if there's one for you, but in the retail industry,
Uh-huh.
it's Nordstrom.
Okay.
If there is a Nordstrom near you and you've ever shopped there, be it online or in person, you'll be amazed at the service.
Yeah.
And I felt it personally as well. But they are known for service. There are several companies that have service in there. So it's more than a mission
Yeah.
statement, it becomes a purpose for them. For us as entrepreneurs, things are going to get very, very tough because they always do.
Yep.
The entrepreneurial ride is a roller coaster, and you just hope the seatbelt holds.
Right.
During the crazy downs, when things seem at their bleakest,
Yep.
we're faced with, do we leave? Do we stop? What do we do? People who have a purpose find a way to continue on.
Yeah.
Individually, I spoke to a sales team several years ago, and it was about, at the time, it was called the Chutzpah Rules.
Okay.
And before I went on, they were doing their quarterly sales awards. Basically, most over quota, 240% for the quarter. Most
Yep.
new clients, 14 new clients brought on. Rookie of the quarter, award after award after award. And I'm listening going, wow, this is a pretty good team. They've got some leaders that they can focus on. So these people are doing a good job here. And then they said, and the MVP of the quarter, and they mentioned a name, and they said, and he was 106% of quota. And it was like, whoa, every award to this point had been way over this.
Yeah.
What made this person the MVP? And then they said, as you know, they mentioned the gentleman's name. He lost his wife a little over a year ago. He has two young children. He wanted to leave. He didn't know how he could raise his kids without his wife. He was torn between reassuring them what was going to happen. We said, look, you're not going to leave. We'll give you the time you need. We'll give you the support you need, but you're too valued a member for us to let you go. And you are truly part of our family. Now, he had a purpose. His purpose was not company, not quota, not commissions, but his kids.
Right.
And that purpose, along with the help from his company, which clearly has a culture of support and what I call chutzpah for their colleagues, for their teams.
Yep.
He made it through. So he continued his story. He left a year ago. He sadly, there's this tragic situation. He lost his wife. He hadn't made quota since. This is his first quarter back making quota.
Yep.
And he is our MVP. That to me is an illustration of purpose. The North Star, in a sense, that keeps us going through our toughest times, whether personally, whether in our organization, whether as a member of a team, something that gets us beyond all of the difficulties that we're facing and the things we can't control, but we do choose how we respond to them.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's the purpose side.
That reminds me of, we often hear some people say, what is your why? And so that definitely rings true with that P being purpose. Now, we won't be able to get to all of those characteristics from the acronym Chutzpah, but if someone did want to find out more specifically on that, where could they find that information specific to how you have interpreted this?
Well, coincidentally, there's a book called The Chutzpah Advantage.
Okay.
Go bigger, be bolder, do better. The book outlines the 8 key behaviors and gives examples of very well-known, successful people.
Yep.
And we think, oh, wow, that's a level of chutzpah. I'm not going to be an Elon Musk. I'm not going to be a Steve Jobs.
Sure.
It's people in business as well as a cab driver,
Hmm.
medical researchers, and even certain athletes. For example,
Yeah.
Jackie Robinson, that comes to mind because it was just Jackie Robinson Day in Major League Baseball this
Right.
past weekend, where all the teams honored the legacy of Jackie Robinson and
Yeah.
how his very courageous breaking the barrier, the color barrier,
Right.
has impacted society. All
Yeah.
these, and we're 75 years removed, I think about now. I'm
Hmm.
not quite sure if it's 75, might be 75 years or
Okay.
somewhere in that range. Uh, we think, I doubt that he would have called it chutzpah, but
Sure.
considering what he faced, is perfect illustration of the model from
Yes.
basically going ahead and doing it, being the
Right.
person to say, I know this is going to be tough. There are going to be people, including teammates, that hate me, that are
Right.
racist, that are going to threaten me, that are going to slide into second base with their spikes up to hurt me.
Right.
Um, but there's a larger purpose here, and that is I deserve the right to play with the best.
Right.
And this is about equality. This is about others that'll come after me.
Yes. Yes.
So,
Absolutely. Yeah.
so
Yeah.
the book will help. Certainly, I'm on LinkedIn. You can find me as the Chutzpah guy.
Yep.
I have a newsletter. I try and get something out at least, well, usually once a week.
Okay.
Maybe some
All right.
posts, but an article that's there. And
Okay.
if people are even curious, on my LinkedIn profile is my email address, which is mason@thechutzpahguy.com.
Okay.
If they want to reach out to me and they have a specific question, I like speaking to people. I'll get back.
Excellent. Well, I appreciate that. And so the book, The Chutzpah Advantage, also reaching out on LinkedIn or Mason at thechutzpahguy.com. And if you don't know how to spell that and you're watching this on video, I'm just going to pop it up on the screen for us, but it's Chutzpah, also in the name of the title of this episode. So please do take advantage of that. Look at the, take an opportunity to get the book or reach out to Mason, get on that mailing list so you can get some information on an ongoing basis. Somebody who has had the experiences of having to walk through some challenges, but also came out on the other side of that, and then has learned from others' examples what it takes to have chutzpah in everyday life in situations such as being in business, but not just in that, but like the cab driver he described, the medical researcher, the professional athlete, Jackie Robinson's story. There are a lot of different situations this applies to. So, Mason, I want to thank you for joining us on the show today. You
Well,
truly, for me, you're the chutzpah guy. I can definitely see where this comes from.
Zach, I appreciate the opportunity. I thank you. And I also thank your audience for paying attention. And just the act of wanting to improve oneself is chutzpah because it's about stretching boundaries, learning new things. They're tuning into your podcast. That means they're stretching themselves. They want they want best practices, and you're providing them.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah, I 100% agree. Thank you for sharing that. So let's go out and stretch ourselves today. Thank you.